Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my top picks for fall eyeshadow palettes. So these are the palettes that I see myself reaching for the most. My favorite palettes for fall. They just have that kind of fall color scheme. Of course, you could use any palette you want any time of year. I'm all about doing you. But these are the palettes that really kind of draw me in, and I feel like that grungy, just like fall makeup vibes, those vampy vibes, beautiful warm tones. We have some cool tones, some pinks, some purples, some mauves, some reds, some greens. We have all of it basically. So these are the palettes that really kind of stand out to me. I had 8 to talk about. I didn't want to go through and just like grab 30 palettes just for the sake of it. So I really wanted to just grab the palettes that really spoke to me and nothing else. So 8 palettes. If you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe and let's go ahead and jump in. So I actually filmed this like an hour ago and my audio was corrupt when I imported the footage. So here we are again. So let's just try to restart, rejuvenate so I can get through and tell you why I love these palettes. So the first one is the newest one in my collection, and this is from Huda Beauty. This is the Khaki Haze palette. I just did a look with this, and I will link below tutorials for all of these palettes just if you need some inspiration. So I used this in my last video and it was so interesting. I was talking about how the packaging is green and how the middle shade is this like deep olive green. And I had so many comments like, there's nothing green about that. There's no green in there. I'm not seeing green. I'm just seeing brown. So I was like, am I going crazy? Because very clearly the packaging is green. When they describe the palette, they describe it as an olive edit with warm brown shimmers and some caramel kind of tones. This is definitely green in the middle. I think it's just camera settings because when you see it in person, it's very clear. So I was like Googling images. I was looking for other reviews, and every single review I saw, which was like 5 or 6 reviews, all were saying green, 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 olive green. So I was like, okay, maybe my camera lighting is just not showing this off, but this definitely has a green in the middle. And then these 2 gold shades are very much kind of old gold. So they give you that green kind of look. The reason I love this palette is because it's neutral with a twist. So because you have that kind of very soft green, meaning that it's not lime, it's not bright, it's just very grungy. It almost smokes out to kind of like a khaki brown with a green tinge. And then when you do apply these shimmers, it really does give you that kind of green look. I've seen some that looked quite green in their final look and then a lot that looked brown. So it just kind of depends how you use them. Mattes are beautiful here. You have a lot to work with, 5 mattes, and they all have a purpose. What I like about this is that you can build depth, and this is perfect for a blown out matte grunge look. You can add the shimmers in here. These are mostly toppers, so they don't have full metallic pigment. I've noticed that with Huda Beauty palettes. Some of them are just like metallic shades, which means they have like that base, so they have a lot of color payoff and they're high shine. But some of them, like this pinky one, is very much just high shine iridescent. It doesn't have much backing, so it's almost like an iridescent topper, if that makes sense. This one does have mostly iridescent toppers. There's not much base pigment to it. You're really just going to get that high shine. So for me, this palette really stuns with just the tones of the mattes, and then you can really work 1 or 2 of these on your lids and it really does look like asphalt, like beautiful, just like high shine shimmer. Everybody I've seen use this loved it. I love it as well. There's something different about it. Even though it's the khaki palette, there is a green undertone to it, and it really does make it unique. This is my top pick. I just think it's such a unique little twist on a neutral palette. I do have one more palette from Huda Beauty, and this is completely different. This is the Nude Medium palette. So again, I love the 9 pan palettes from her, but this was from a former collection. This palette is beautiful, romantic, mauve-y, pinky fall vibes to me. So this is very different because these are actually metallic shades. So you can see when I swatch them, these have pigment behind them. They're very pigmented, high shine, but they're not glittery, toppery like the one I just spoke about. The mattes in here are beautiful. Again, you get 5 great mattes to work with, all deep and rich, so you can kind of change your look up. But this is giving me beautiful, pinky mauve romantic vibes, and I am a pink lover. It's not super cool toned to where it's like icy, but it's just right in the middle. To me, this really does look like a beautiful neutral fall palette. If you tend to go for pink vibes, like even these mattes have a little bit of a pink tinge to them, but they still have depth. And then you do have this kind of warm brown up here and then a deep chocolate. And you can also go for the coppery red kind of tone or also just the gold. I love this palette. I used this in a Sephora haul a while ago, and I was super impressed with this. It's just beautiful. I love Huda's formula, but I think a lot of times people get a little bit disappointed with the iridescent shade. So if you're looking for full, like high pigment metallics with a lot of color underneath, I think you would really enjoy this palette. My next pick is from Lunar Beauty, and this was the Moonspell palette. So this packaging is so gorgeous, by the way, but this palette is super unique. It has this really purple tone, but when you do kind of cover up the purple, I'm seeing those really kind of grungy, again, fall vibes. So if you want to go more green than the Khaki palette, the Khaki palette, again, is like brown, but a little bit of a green kind of twist. You have two greens in here. So you have like a deep kind of moss green, and then you have more of like a muted green. So you could definitely take it more green with this palette. There's also these shades which are a little bit more kind of like turquoise, but again, in the green blue family. But then you also have these beautiful, just like, you know, neutral browns. This is a beautiful palette because it's muted. So it's really interesting. It's kind of got some color to it, but it's not loud. Obviously you could get loud with the purples in here, but I'm thinking more of, if you cover up the purple, to me this just looks like, I don't know, a really unique kind of muted palette, but fall. I remember doing a tutorial and I used this shade right here, and it was like a beautiful gunmetal. It did remind me kind of the Huda Beauty toppers in the Khaki palette. It just looked like wet asphalt on my eyes. So I think this is a beautiful palette for this time of year. If you're looking for a little bit more color, but again, not like neon, you just want a little bit of play. You could obviously stay with just like the browns, but if you want to take it a little bit green, a little bit kind of, I don't know, charcoal or purple, you can do that with this, and the formula is beautiful. So I wanted to mention this one. So next up is one of my all-time favorite fall palettes, and this is a little bit older, but I'm telling you, this is giving it to me. Fall in a palette. This is the Colourpop Whatever palette. I adore this palette. This is probably the cheapest palette I think that I'm mentioning today. I love Colourpop formula. They just come out with so many palettes that I can't keep up. But this palette, I remember the first time I used this, I fell in love with it. So it does have a pressed glitter, which I did use. And then it does have one Super Shock. But this is fall in a palette to me. This has those kind of deeper, kind of like red brown shades, the warm shades, just like the red, brick red shades. And then you have cranberries, you have golds, beautiful coppers, and then just tons of mattes to work with. I mean, this is very, very fall. You wear this with a burgundy lip and you're just like good to go. I love the formula on this, and I just remember how just beautiful this looked. It really did look super, I don't know, just like smoky fall vibes. One of my top picks, it's an older palette. I checked to see if they had it available, and they do, and I'm so glad they still have it. It's the most affordable in my picks, and I just think it's a beautiful fall palette. So the next palette is actually from Sigma, and this palette could either be fall or summer or spring. This is the Cor-de-Rosa palette. This palette, I feel like a lot of people loved, and I feel like Sigma's really stepped their game up. This is a very, very pretty kind of purpley romantic palette. I always think of romantic. So here's why I think this is a fall palette. If you cover up these lighter shades down here, it just has those fall vibes, very similar to the Whatever palette that I just spoke about, but this has more purple pink to it. So you've got this beautiful kind of pink to work with, and then you could go into this purpley pink shimmer. So it's giving you kind of those romantic vibes, but you could also go into this, you know, shimmery kind of red copper, and then you have a standard gold. You have some kind of peachy colors to work through the crease. I just think this is a beautiful fall palette. I love the blendability on these, the pigmentation. I remember again using this and being blown away. Sigma's really stepped it up, and I think this was one of the first palettes that really made me more intrigued in their products, and since then they've released a few more. But I think this is really just a basic everyday palette that you could go again into the purples, the pinks, the golds, or neutral, and then you could spice it up and go a little bit more kind of cranberry, which is what I think of when I think of fall. So I wanted to mention this because it's really a standout one to me that I think has a great formula, great pigmentation, and it has colors I think of when I think of fall. So my last three palettes are all from the same brand, and I was like, you know what? It maybe seems like a little overkill, but honestly, I love the formula on these palettes. And there's just something about these palettes that really scream fall to me. So I'm gonna start off with the Natasha Denona Love palette. So you might be like, that's not fall, that's like a spring, right? A spring release. But to me, first of all, I'm partial because I love pink eyeshadow. To me, what makes this different is the deep purples in here and the deep cranberries in here. This is like a cool toned, pink romantic palette, you have kind of these, I don't know, like deep, deep, deep purples that I feel like you could really smoke out and make a beautiful fall, like romantic eye. But then you have, you know, the reds and the cranberries, and then you have these pinks as well. Something about these tones though, because most of the palette is deep, I feel like you could get a depth there, really smoke it out, romantic. If you kind of go for more cool tone, pinky purples, rather than kind of like the orangey colors, I feel like this is a great pick. Her $65 palettes are my favorite palettes from her. I think the price is okay for her. Obviously, she's a high-end cosmetic company. I love the size of these because you get so many different colors to choose from. I love the packaging on these, and I just prefer them to her $130 palettes that are just a little bit just over the top in my opinion. 65, if you're gonna use this every day, I feel like is a fair price for her. And I just love that she keeps sticking to these and not going for those huge palettes. So this one might not be a conventional fall palette to most people, but to me, you could really just deepen this up and make it very rich and have those really pretty purple, red, pink tones. My next pick is one of my favorite palettes recently. I know it's gonna work for me. I just love every look that I do with it. And this is a more warm tone, kind of orangey, bronzy palette. This is the Natasha Denona bronze palette. So again, in the $65 family. I recently did a look with this. You guys, this is gorgeous. So this has a ton of shimmers, and I've seen some people say the shimmers are all the same, and they are very similar. But I do think there's enough variation if you really swatch them and kind of just see the differences in them. But really, you know when you're picking this up that you're gonna get a copper bronze eye. You're gonna really stay here if you wanna go for that bronze, true bronze. You can go a little bit over here if you wanna like a red bronze. And then there is a gunmetal and a black to work with. These blend beautifully. It's easy to use. I know it's gonna work for me. I know that I'm gonna get a bronze look out of it. I just think it takes the guesswork out. If you feel like you're always gravitating towards just warm kind of caramel browns, and then you want like a gold bronze on your lid, I think this is a beautiful palette for fall. Again, lots of nice, deep, rich mattes to work with, which I think is a plus. A lot of times I feel like palettes anymore, like big palettes specifically, they'll have like 4 light shades and it's like they all just blend out to the same thing. So I like that you have lots of deep options to really just deepen up your look if you'd like to. So this is just an everyday staple, whether it's summer, fall, whatever. I just feel like I had to talk about this one because I really love the tones in this, and I think this is a neutral lover's dream. So the last palette is also from Natasha Denona. This one is screaming fall to me, and this is one of my favorite palettes of all time from her. This is the Metropolis palette. I love the tones in here. First of all, this one, you get a lot of different colors. So you can go different ways. If you really want to go there, you can go for this deep kind of teal color, but this really does have that kind of green with a little bit more punch. You can also go for the really, really fiery kind of red on your lid. I mean, you could go all different ways here. You've got the typical kind of bronzy color. So if you maybe looked at the bronze palette and you were like, it's a little bit safe for me, this is a great option. You have tons of warm, kind of orangey, you have like that mustard, you have the green, just dark browns, you really have everything. And some of these in here have like a moussey texture almost. Like this brown is one of my favorites. It blends effortlessly. It almost feels like a cream, but this really is giving it to me all around. If you want tons of options for fall, people again were saying some of them were so similar, and I get that. Like some of these, you know, shimmers are very similar, or these, you know, colors are very similar, but you're also getting a lot in this palette. So I feel like you could literally go so many different ways. You could go blue, orange, red, you know, gold, brown, green. So I feel like there's a lot in this palette that you could do while still being very neutral. I just think this is a gorgeous palette. Love the formulation. Again, I love her shadows. They blend beautifully, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for pigmentation, ease of use. Is it gonna give me the look that I want without struggling? So this had to be included just because the color story screams fall to me. All right, guys, so those are my top picks for fall eyeshadow palettes. I just really wanted to choose the ones that spoke to me. I didn't wanna go through and just grab them for the sake of grabbing them. So I know these ones work for me. I know the formulas are great. I will link down below videos of me using all of these palettes so you can get some inspo if you need that, but let me know what your favorite palettes for fall are. If you're new here, I hope you stay a while and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.